moved into a new town because of her parents' work relocation. It is December and she's entered my second grade class. Fall testing is completed and students have been placed in leveled reading groups for their teachers' guided reading lessons. Jill's records from previous schools have not yet arrived. Her parents told me that Jill worked with a special teacher for reading. What I know about Jill is what I've observed. Jill appears to struggle reading the shared text in social studies and science. She's an active student and her ability to focus on anything is limited. She is reading fluently at a 1.8 level. Jill has good conversational vocabulary and her writing abilities are 1 grade below. I chose 2 assessments that I thought would gather evidence on Jill since we have no previous test scores or background knowledge. I feel that gaining as much evidence as we can about her reading will be helpful in putting together a beneficial reading curriculum for her. One of the assessments I chose for Jill was a running record. I chose to do a running record assessment because it gives a lot of different scores for things that we do not yet have for Jill. The goal for Jill is to improve her accuracy to enhance her comprehension. A running record gives scores for the amount of errors she makes, which will show me what types of words she struggles with. It determines her accuracy rate, which identifies whether the story is at her frustrational, independent, or instructional level. It will be helpful to know her self-correction rate, because this is helpful because if she self-corrects often, we know that she's paying attention to what she's reading. Lastly, there is a comprehension section that will help gauge where she stands at understanding what she is reading at each level. After giving her a running record, I would like her to be at the independent level. I'd like her independent level to be at the 2nd grade along with her peers. The second assessment I chose was a retelling assessment. I chose retelling as one of my assessments because it determines how well a student can comprehend a specific story. I would administer a retelling pre-assessment to first determine where Jill is with her comprehension. This assessment is important for Jill because we know she is struggling with shared text. It is important that we are sure that Jill is understanding what she reads, and retelling is a great strategy for comprehension. Once we know she's comprehending what she's reading, we'll be able to focus her learning towards her struggling writing. Today we are going to read a nonfiction story about worms. Do you know what a nonfiction story is?
It's real.
Yeah, it's a true story based on real life events. The title of the story is Wiggly Worms. After we read the story, we're going to play a little game to see how much you remember about what you read. We are doing this because it's important to comprehend what you are reading. Do you know what it means to comprehend?
To understand and remember.
To comprehend something means that you understand it and it makes sense to you. So try to think while you're reading if the story is making sense to you. If you always comprehend what you're reading, it will be easier to follow along in class and other school subjects such as science and social studies. As you read the book aloud to me, I might have you use one of these silly voice cards to read the page again. This helps with our expression, so we are not always sounding like a robot or short and choppy.
The body of an earthworm is made up of many parts. Each part is shaped like a ring and can bend and stretch. Earthworms move by stretching out their bodies and pulling themselves forward. Short, tough hairs on their bellies help them hold onto the ground. Earthworms are slimy. The slime helps keep earthworms cool and wet. It also helps earthworms slide through soil.
Okay, I'll have you reread this page, but pick one of your voices and then reread your page.
I am going to pick volcano words. Earthworms are slimy. The slime helps keep earthworms cool and wet. It also helps earthworms slide through soil.
Now we're going to play a dice rolling game based off of the story you just read. These are the instructions for each thing that you roll, but I'm going to change some of the things up off of this. If you roll a 1, I'm going to have you look through some of these headings and decide which heading came out of the story that you just read. If you roll a 2, I want you to write 3 vocabulary words out of the book, and you can write them in a sentence. If you roll a 3, you can ask me any questions from the book that you may have. If you roll a 4, I'm going to ask you to tell me a summary of what you just read. So basically, you'll just retell me the main ideas and important details that you remember. If you roll a 5, you're going to look at the 6 sentences that I have here and sort them whether they are a fact or they're false out of the story you just read. And if you roll a 6, I want you to find 3 nonfiction text features and put a sticky note on the page that you found them in your book. Good job. Can you roll again? Next, we're going to read another nonfiction book, but this time we're going to read it on the computer. The book is titled, I'd Like to Be. We're going to do things a little bit different this time. You're going to read the story out loud, but this time you get to record yourself reading it. Once you've recorded it, you're going to get to be the teacher and grade how you think you did. This activity is for you to become aware of how well you read. You'll be able to hear if you read loud and clear and with a lot of expression. But remember, the goal is to remember what you are reading so you understand what the story is all about.
See my kitchen, come and pitch in. My stew's alive with corn and chives. I'd like to make a maker of video games full of dragons and wizards with crazy names. The game I'd write would feature knights who run and jump and get in fights. This game is a fun fantasy. I'd like it if you played with me.
Now that you have recorded what you have read and filled out the report card, we're going to play a vocabulary matching game. You are to use the mouse on the computer to click and drag the vocabulary words to the correct sentence where it makes sense. This will help to see if you are understanding the words that you are reading within the story.